Good evening. In a world that changes by the minute, staying informed is more crucial than ever. The news connects us to the events shaping our lives, from Congress to our local communities. This week brought political debates, legal rulings, and personal stories that reflect our shared experience. Tonight, we'll break down the major headlines, controversy over a lawmaker's comments on the military, new immigration rules, and debates over rights in states like Texas and Oregon. We'll also touch on international developments and the human stories that unite us. Our goal, to give you the context you need to understand the world around you. Let's dive into the week's top stories. A political controversy erupted, sending shockwaves through Washington and igniting fierce debate across the nation. The air was thick with tension as lawmakers, journalists, and citizens alike tried to make sense of the unfolding drama. The Capitol, already a symbol of American democracy, became the epicenter of a heated national conversation. The spark, Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell's public suggestion that the military could serve as a check on former President Trump if he attempted to overstep his authority. Swalwell's comments, made during a high-profile interview, quickly spread through news outlets and social media, fueling speculation and concern about the role of the armed forces in American politics. Supporters of Swalwell argued that he was simply reaffirming the military's sworn duty to uphold the Constitution above all else, emphasizing that service members are obligated to refuse unlawful orders, no matter who gives them. They point to the military's long tradition of loyalty to the nation's founding principles, not to any individual leader, but critics see things very differently. They warn that even hinting at military involvement in political disputes is a dangerous precedent, one that could undermine the bedrock principle of civilian control over the armed forces. Commentators and former officials voiced concerns that such rhetoric risks blurring the lines between military and political spheres, potentially destabilizing the delicate balance that has defined American democracy for generations. The controversy only deepened when a video surfaced showing 6 Democratic lawmakers urging military personnel to question and resist unlawful orders. For some, this was a responsible reminder of the military's constitutional obligations. For others, it crossed a line, appearing to politicize the armed forces and draw them into partisan conflict. The video quickly became a flashpoint, with both sides accusing each other of endangering the nation's democratic norms. This episode has brought to the surface deep anxieties about the stability and resilience of America's democratic institutions. It has forced the country to confront uncomfortable questions about the boundaries of power and the responsibilities of those who wield it. The storm of debate has left many wondering just how fragile the system might be in times of crisis. What is the proper relationship between elected officials and the military? How should the armed forces respond if they are caught between conflicting orders and constitutional principles? These are not just theoretical questions, they strike at the heart of what it means to live in a democracy. Where is the line between upholding constitutional order and veering into political interference? At what point does defending democracy risk undermining it? The answers are far from simple, and the debate continues to evolve as new voices and perspectives enter the conversation. As the conversation unfolds, Americans from all walks of life are reminded of the delicate balance required to protect democracy. The nation watches, debates, and reflects, aware that the choices made today could shape the future for generations to come. One thing is clear, the debate is far from over, and the questions it raises will continue to challenge the nation's conscience. In Colorado, a federal judge limited ICE arrests to undocumented immigrants deemed flight risks. Supporters call it a humane step toward just immigration policy, while critics worry it will hinder law enforcement. Meanwhile, New York City's council is debating a bill to raise top officials' salaries. Proponents say higher pay attracts talent from all backgrounds. Opponents question the timing amid other city needs. The debate spotlights a classic tension: how to balance skilled leadership with responsible use of taxpayer money. Both stories show how local decisions can have wide-reaching impacts. Immigration and public service compensation remain hot topics in communities nationwide. These issues reflect the ongoing challenge of balancing fairness, safety, and fiscal responsibility. Texas officials are investigating a women's weightlifting competition after a transgender athlete's win. Supporters say the probe protects the integrity of women's sports, citing concerns about fairness and Title IX. Advocates for transgender rights call the investigation discriminatory and harmful, arguing for inclusion and respect for gender identity. The debate is deeply personal and emotional, with no easy answers. How can sports be both inclusive and fair? The outcome in Texas could set a precedent for similar debates nationwide. This issue remains at the forefront of conversations about rights and equality in sports. In Oregon, a school district recently reached a settlement with a group of educators who were dismissed after expressing personal views on gender identity that conflicted with the district's official policy. The case drew significant attention, not only from local communities, but also from national advocacy groups on both sides of the debate. For many, it raised difficult questions about where to draw the line between upholding school policies designed to foster inclusivity and respecting the deeply held beliefs of individual staff members. The case highlights the ongoing tension in American education. How do schools create environments where every student feels safe and valued, while also protecting the free speech and religious rights of teachers and staff? Parents, students, and educators alike are grappling with these questions, as school boards across the country face mounting pressure to clarify their policies and respond to community concerns. Meanwhile, in Texas, a different but related controversy is unfolding. Muslim advocacy groups have filed a lawsuit against Governor Abbott, challenging a recent proclamation they argue unfairly targets their community and infringes on their religious freedom. The proclamation has sparked protests and drawn criticism from civil rights organizations who say it sets a dangerous precedent for government overreach. The lawsuit is now at the center of a heated debate over the limits of executive power and the constitutional principle of separation of church and state. Legal experts are watching closely, as the outcome could influence how similar cases are handled in the future. Both the Oregon and Texas cases demonstrate how legal battles are increasingly shaping the national conversation on civil rights, inclusion, and the authority of government officials. These disputes are not just about individual incidents. They reflect broader societal struggles over identity, belief, and the role of public institutions. As these cases make their way through the courts, judges are being asked to weigh complex questions that could have far-reaching consequences for schools, religious communities, and the broader public. The outcomes could set important legal precedents, shaping how schools accommodate diverse beliefs, and how government interacts with faith-based communities for years to come. These stories underscore the complexity of balancing individual rights with public policy, and remind us that the search for fairness and inclusion is an ongoing process, one that requires careful consideration, open dialogue, and respect for differing perspectives. As these debates play out in courtrooms and communities across the country, the nation is watching closely, aware that the decisions made today will help define the boundaries of rights and responsibilities for generations to come. This week, the boundaries between media and politics became more blurred than ever, as the worlds of journalism and political discourse collided in dramatic fashion. The traditional role of the media, to inform the public with facts, was challenged by a wave of speculation, opinion, and controversy that swept across newsrooms and social media alike. As stories unfolded, it became increasingly difficult to distinguish between objective reporting and personal or partisan narratives. One flashpoint was a former MSNBC host's public theory about J.D. Vance's personal life, which quickly drew widespread backlash. Critics argued that the commentary crossed a line, shifting from legitimate scrutiny to baseless personal attacks. This incident reignited debates about the responsibilities of journalists and the ethical boundaries of political coverage, especially when speculation overshadows substantiated facts. At the same time, political figures like Caroline Leavitt took to public platforms to dispute media reports, openly challenging the accuracy and motives of journalists. These confrontations not only fueled distrust between politicians and the press, but also deepened the polarization of public opinion, making it harder for audiences to know whom to believe. Even established outlets like the BBC faced scrutiny, as the organization admitted to slow reporting on a major Trump scandal. This admission highlighted the immense pressures and challenges that major news organizations face in a rapidly evolving media landscape, where the demand for speed can sometimes come at the expense of accuracy or depth. These incidents underscore a troubling trend. Personal drama, sensationalism, and partisan disputes often dominate headlines, pushing aside careful analysis and factual reporting. The news cycle becomes a battleground for competing narratives, where the loudest voices often drown out the most reliable information. For the public, this means navigating a confusing maze of conflicting stories and opinions. Many people find themselves overwhelmed, struggling to separate truth from spin as they search for trustworthy information in a sea of noise. In this environment, critical thinking and a willingness to consult diverse news sources are more important than ever. By seeking out multiple perspectives and questioning what we read or hear, we can better protect ourselves from misinformation and bias. The media landscape is more contentious than ever, and the stakes for public trust are incredibly high. Every story, every headline, and every debate shapes how we understand the world and make decisions as citizens. In a time of blurred lines and heightened skepticism, navigating the news requires vigilance, discernment, and a commitment to seeking the truth. Internationally, Saudi Arabia is emerging as a key player as the US counters Iran, China, and Russia. Traditional alliances are shifting, and the region's strategic importance is growing. The US faces the challenge of balancing partnerships, energy interests, and human rights concerns. Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine continues, with Russia betting on outlasting Western support. General Jack Keane warns that Putin's strategy is to exhaust the will of the US, Europe, and Ukraine. The conflict tests the unity and resolve of Western allies. The coming months will be critical for Ukraine and the international coalition. Global events remain deeply connected to American interests and security. Beyond politics, several human stories captured national attention this week. A high school coach's wife defended him amid his disappearance and legal troubles, adding mystery and heartbreak. A grieving mother spoke out after her teen's death on a cruise ship, resonating with families everywhere. A billionaire's announcement of his wife's sudden passing drew global sympathy, showing how social media connects us in moments of loss. Royal watchers debated Meghan Markle's use of her title in a small meeting, sparking fresh discussion about modern royalty. These stories remind us of the personal moments behind the headlines. They connect us through shared experiences of loss, resilience, and public scrutiny. This week's stories, from political debates to personal tragedies, paint a vivid picture of our changing world. Staying informed isn't just about headlines, it's about understanding the forces shaping our lives and communities. Knowledge empowers us to participate in democracy, make informed choices, and connect with others. International events, local decisions, and human stories all matter. By following the news, we become more engaged, empathetic citizens. Thank you for joining us as we break down the week's events. I'm Lester Holt. Good night.